What's good, YouTube? Back again with another video. Today we are looking at the GPX 2 DEX. Now, why is it called DEX? I don't know, because DEX is like ambidextrous, and this is an Ergo mouse, as you can see from the bottom, compared to the original Superlight shape. Anyways, you might know what to expect from here. It's Logitech. You're going to get great flagship specs. So it is going to be supporting 4K and 8K with just the USB dongle that's provided. And it has a bunch of upgraded specs like the big DPI numbers and whatnot, but basically all you need to know is it's basically the fastest wireless latency as of now. Of course, it's still going to be trading blows with Razer and Final Mouse, but I think it has exceeded the Viper V3 Pro according to the Tech Power Up review, so go ahead and check that out if you haven't. If you guys watch my reviews, I'm really not the technical review guy. I just tell you how it is to use the product, to actually feel the product, to actually use it in your hands. And a lot of this like tech nonsense is just like not a meaningful difference when it comes to high polling rates and stuff like that. But I do value it in a product because it just gives you peace of mind, right? It's not important, but it is a nice peace of mind to be carrying a updated piece of tech. So again, this is a new Ergo shape from Logitech, and it has taken DNA from the G703 and something like the EC2. As you can see, some of the DNA of the curvature is there. You know, not all of it, but some of it. For now, let's finish the overview. So what you get in the box is, of course, the mouse, the puck. I've actually already swapped out the puck because I like using it for a more balanced skate feeling. Get the mouse casing and some plastic and some power play advertisement, as if we don't know what that is by now. The dongle comes here. Of course, here's your little packet of stuff that goes in there. The cable is rubber, which is why it stays in the package, because I don't want to use this because it's terrible, right? Like, thank you for finally going USB-C, but we need a braided cable. Open this thing up, basically just to show you guys that it does come with these grips. I think these grips are trash, but I mean, they're there if you need them. I'd much prefer them to give you an extra set of skates. So that is what you get for an MSRP of $160. Is it worth it? Spoiler alert, in my opinion, no, but let's go ahead and talk about the next topic, which is the build quality. And honestly, it's great. Honestly, ever since using the original Superlight, it's just a different feeling, like a different good premium feeling in my opinion. Now that does seem like a compliment, but you have to consider at the same time, the only mice I've used since the Superlight, including the Superlight from Logitech, is the Superlight, Superlight 2, and now the Superlight 2 DEX. So I'm sitting here telling you that holding a Logitech mouse is like, you can feel the quality, but if I've only held 3 and I've held like, what, 3 or more from like every other company in that same amount of time frame, then I don't know, it doesn't hold as much weight as it does. So yeah, the build quality is great. The first thing I will talk about is something that everyone complains about, is the wheel quality on Superlights. And me personally, I just have to tell you, like as a reviewer, I review what I use. I don't review other people's experiences. And in my experience, I've never had a wheel problem with any Superlight. I've had like multiple Superlight 1s, multiple Superlight 2s, and now the DEX, and I just haven't had any issues with any of them doing any weird input stuff. Having used like multiple copies of each other mice, except for the DEX, obviously, because I just got it to review. It's never been an issue for me personally. Another thing is that the Logitech Superlight is just so popular and has so much market share that you can get third-party mod kits for the clicks and the scroll wheel. That's something I have in this, which has Huano Blue Shell pink dots because I got a hot swappable board. And they even have one for the DEX and the Superlight 2. So if you want to get the Superlight 2 but you don't like those optical clicks, you can go ahead and get the hot swap board and put in mechanical clicks. Same thing goes for the GPX 2, and you can switch the scroll wheel. They usually come with the scroll wheel pre-installed, so if your scroll wheel is broken, you can go ahead and do that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that if you buy a $160 mouse, you should be buying a hot swap kit, but it is an option that you have. You know, right to repair is a thing. Obviously, you don't want to have to repair something, but the option is there for Logitech mice because they're so popular and third parties are making external parts for it. That is just a good thing, right? Put that up against my Death Adder V3 Faker Edition. Look, first thing I want to say, make this clear. This is no disrespect at all to Faker. I'm a Faker fanboy. I literally have the shirt, man, the 4 championship shirt. Like, how are you gonna hold me? But the quality on this mouse, coming from Razer against Logitech, this is terrible, bro. Let me give you the up close mic and just show you the creaking on this thing. Okay, that's fine. I can deal with creaking, but let's take it to the computer now. I'm gonna scroll it normally and just look, those red inputs, I'm scrolling it down, right? Those red inputs are all gonna be scroll ups. Look how many scroll ups I'm getting. This is a scroll wheel that sucks. This is one copy that I have because this is a limited edition mouse for $170. Whereas I've had like 5+ Logitech Superlights None of them have had issues. I either mod them and sell them or I keep them. Never had an issue once. And the ability to write to repair is there. This one I have to get in there and like solder it myself, whereas this one you have to get in there, just take out a piece. Get the switches you like, put it back in, screw it all together. Also compare the wheel of Logitech to the wheel of the EC2. People are always going to complain because this thing is loud. I don't even need to bring the mic up, right? The reason why it's loud is because the notches have to be very prominent because the encoder is not using the notches to record the input. The encoder is using optical, which means a light. It's kind of similar to old keyboards before Hall effect keyboards were a thing. It's just every time the light signal passes, the optical encoder will read an input. This way, this wheel never fails, right? But a lot of people always want to complain about how this wheel is loud, but these wheels break. So I don't know, man. Like, I'd much rather have this loud wheel that's always perfect and always gives you tactile feedback versus like risking these wheels, right? Like, this is a terrible wheel, man. This needs to be better. Not only for the customers, but for Faker, man. Why are you disrespecting Faker like this, Razer? Come on. Anyways, rants aside, the buttons feel great. The main clicks are going to be the Omron opticals. I think they feel great. They felt great on the Superlight too. People said they were too heavy, but if you've paid attention, I've made a video on the newer batches of the GPX2 and the clicks are a lot better. They retuned them since the first batch, so the first batch is a bit lighter, still a bit heavier than the original GPX, but I think that's an improvement in my opinion. The side clicks, they're still not as good as they should be in my opinion. The total travel, in my opinion, is not an issue, but to have this much travel, you can't use a light switch, and these use a light switch. So what happens if you have a lot of travel and a light switch is that it just feels like nothing, right? Take something like the EC2, for example. It has a similar amount of travel, but the switch has a stronger actuation. You can feel that switch like giving you feedback. Whereas this just doesn't give you any feedback, right? It needs a heavier switch. Here's another comparison with Razer. You can see they go the route of still having a lighter switch, but less travel. So you need to pick one, right? Like less travel and lighter switch or more travel and heavier switch. Middle click, unfortunately, feels like some cheap dot switch, not a mechanical switch, but I don't really use this bind. The wheel itself is like a looser style, but the steps you can still feel. So again, no complaints because for me personally, I've never had a Superlight wheel fail on me. The last thing, the skates, yeah, these are kind of disappointing. But honestly, I kind of like them as someone who prefers control skates. I think people have gone kind of like lost in the sauce, just wanting speed. Like speed is better for everything nowadays, but me personally, I just like going with classic control pad, as you can see, control skates. You know, just give me consistency. The real issue I will show you that people are not noticing is that the corners of these are not actually sharp. They are actually rounded. I don't know if they changed them, but I do see and feel some rounding. The issue comes where the skate lies. On this black part, you can see these little ridges. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's these little ridges that outline the skate. That is the problem with the scratchiness. And I will show you because there is a perfect example of the Pulsar X-Lite V3 having these same ridges. And because this is a firmer pad, you will not hear those ridges. But if I get an artisan pad, this is a 0x soft, you will hear the scratchiness definitely from both of these mice. If you take a Death Adder V3 that does not have those outlining ridges on the skates, you don't hear that same level of scratchiness. You do still hear some, but that is from the mouse pad hitting the actual base. The real issue is the outlines surrounding the skates. Not only Logitech, but Pulsar is doing it too, and they both stink on X-Soft, maybe even soft artisan pads. Do not put these ridges here, man. Moving on to the coating, it's still S tier, I got nothing to complain about. The only thing I will complain about is like a bit of dirt that accumulates on the clicks. I don't know if it's this specific coating, but I always seem to get this on Superlights. So yeah, sorry to disgust you guys, but I did keep this here just to show you guys. Great battery life, again, Logitech. The premium comes with the build quality, the coating, battery life, and the firmware tuning. Again, this is like the fastest mouse on the market, wireless at least, and it still maintains good battery life. Not to mention that the firmware updates have come to the GPX2 to match the performance of the DEX, so it's good to see Logitech support their older models as well. And I know the GPX2 used to have polling inconsistencies at various polling rates, but now they have been solved with the software updates. So yeah, go ahead and get that software update if you're watching this and you have a GPX2. Next thing it covers is software. So I love Logitech software because all you have to do is get onboard memory manager. It's just an exe file, it's portable. You don't need a big heavy software like something like Razer, and it won't add itself to startup apps. Again, all you have to do is set your stuff here. I use 1600 DPI, 4000 wireless. That's literally it. I can just close this now. Boom. So yeah, thank you to Logitech for having a lightweight option, not just having their commercial option of their software that can get a little bit invasive and run too many background services. So yeah, I highly recommend other companies to start doing this. I know the recent trend is to have a web-based software as well. So finally, what we've all kind of been waiting for, shape. As you can see, I love Ergo mice. And unfortunately, I'm not the biggest fan of the DEX shape, but I think it's because I have a bigger hand, so I do think it has a place in the market for people with smaller hands. The reason why I don't like it is because I don't think they've balanced the backside properly, at least for bigger hands like me, right? So if you have a bigger hand like me and you grab the mouse, the right side feels very symmetrical. It almost feels like it would be a good shape if it were symmetrical. The problem is that this right side hump comes out much further in proportion to the left side. Now, it might not look like that, but once you have it in hand, you can kind of feel it. You can see the other examples of this in EC style shapes. This thumb curve does not come out as much, and it's in proportion with the other side. So for the DEX, for me at least, the thumb curve comes out, but it doesn't feel like the right side comes out as much in proportion, so it feels kind of unbalanced, right? It feels like I wanted even more curvature in the shape here to come out, or the alternative would to be allow my ring finger to go even narrower. But as you can see, this didn't happen because it's using the same sharp corner from the design language of the original GPX design. So all in all, the right side of the mouse feels nice in isolation, and so does the left side. But putting two and two together, it doesn't feel like they're proportional with each other. And the last thing is where the peak of the mouse is. A lot of people struggle with the peak of EC style shapes, stating that it's too uncomfortable or too lopsided, which is why they use symmetrical mice. And the peak on this mouse feels like much sharper. It's almost like more so like the Thorn than it is an EC shape. I can go ahead and claw grip these shapes, these EC shapes, because they fall off at a consistent rate, right? However, on the DEX, you can really feel like this is the peak. So I would have liked to seen this be a little bit flatter or have the drop off of the shape be a little bit more gradual. It seems like they placed a bit too much emphasis on having the same design language, thinner grip width as the original GPX instead of just making a satisfying Ergo shape. And talking about the imbalance of the curves on each side again, if I just try to get like a balanced grip on it, you can see like my hand has my fingers pointing way to the right. Just trying to get a natural relaxed grip, right? This is happening because of this imbalance in my opinion. The EC shape is great because it gives you a great balance. If I just relax and then put my pinky and thumb on grip spots, I still get a bit to the right, but it's obviously nowhere near as much as on the DEX. Like it's almost like both my fingers are on the right click, right? Whereas this, at least I'm getting somewhere near the center and I can just claw my fingers like that, boom, comfy grip, just like that. Where is my ring finger? And then I have to kind of adjust my grip to the mouse, when your goal should be, when finding a good shape, is to find a mouse that fits your hand, right? So yeah, just an overall breakdown, an overall conclusion on the shape. It's less of an EC2 inspired shape, but it feels more like a Lamzu Thorn inspired shape in my hand. Again, the reasons are because this peak is very sharp. Same thing with the Lamzu Thorn. Unlike the Lamzu Thorn, however, the back hump does not end near the peak. It just slopes off gradually, which I do like about that. That is an upgrade from the Thorn, but I think the peak is still a bit too high. This side, the right side, sloping off to the right side needs to slope off more gradually, kind of like it does towards the back. It's also like the Thorn because the front tries to be pretty symmetrical. As you can tell with all these markings and the design language of the original GPX, that's what they're trying to do. I don't mind that. I think that's a good thing too. It's just where the thumb curve comes in, where it just protrudes out so much without giving you a proper balance on the other side that it feels kind of lost. So yeah, I think this is a shape for GPX users to try Ergo rather than giving Ergo users an improved Ergo experience. And I'm saying this because the GPX has been criticized as an inconsistent shape, right? There's not enough curvature or identity of the shape to give you a consistent grip. If you're someone like that and you haven't found success on other ambidextrous shapes, maybe you can give the GPX2 DEX a try. But if you enjoy EC style shapes, I think there's just so many EC style options like I showed you. There's still more other than that. There's the Detonator V3 Hyperspeed. WL mouse now has an EC style shape. There's just so many shapes you can go ahead and try with the EC style that if it fits you, right? You don't need to go ahead and try the DEX. If you use the Thorn, but you wanted a fuller Thorn, again, this would be a good shape for you. But yeah, if you're like me, you have bigger hands and you like the EC shape, I don't think the DEX is for you. I actually still like the original GPX shape better than the DEX, even as someone who likes Ergo shapes, which is kind of weird. And just a comment on Logitech in general. I mean, Logitech has just been absolutely like lost in the sauce, right? For the past 4 years since the Superlight launched. I mean, from this mouse to this mouse, what have we really seen, right? We saw the Shroud G303, which in my opinion wasn't anything special, right? I think Shroud himself had some regrets on the development of that mouse being developed during COVID, you know, not having enough testing, and I think he even uses Superlight now. They had the G705, which is just nothing special, just brush it off. They had a G502 refresh, which is, again, nothing special, just brush it off. It is obviously a wildly popular mouse, but it's not something like in the performance market, right? Which is what a lot of these brands and companies have been focusing directly on all these years, whereas I think Logitech has just been coasting. And then obviously they had the Superlight 2, which I've done videos on, and you know, I'll give them credit there. The Superlight 2 was a great refresh, really nice feeling on-run opticals, just like this. The USB-C refresh, and providing higher polling rates with just the dongle instead of having to pay for an external dongle like other companies. You know, there might be arguments that the polling rate had inconsistencies for a long time until these updates, but I don't think you can hold them for that because they didn't make you pay for the dongle, right? And I don't agree with the 160 price tag on the DEX or the normal GPX2 Superlight, but the GPX2 has been as low as like 124 on Amazon. And I think nowadays you can even find it on eBay for even lower than that, right? The only thing I'm upset about is that we don't have a red GPX2 or maybe even the Chinese colorways that we saw online. So yeah, despite all these years of inactivity and the performance mouse market side, they have finally made this, and it just feels bittersweet, right? It doesn't feel good. I mean, it's a nice mouse, but it's going to disappoint EC users because I still think the EC style shape is just better. And two, it's also going to disappoint G703 users who would be the main people who want to buy this mouse, right? Again, like I said, I'm not even a G703 fanboy. I think the hump on the G703 is just too sharp. But honestly, why make this like kind of weird shape when you could have just made a G703 Superlight, and then at this point you could have made a G703 Superlight 2 with the updated specs. Not only just that, but even in the keyboard scene, I think Logitech has only just recently, like in late 2024, adopted Hall effect magnetic switches. Maybe it was summer, maybe not late, but still super late, right? And you have to consider they're a prominent sponsor and they have prominent market share in both Counter-Strike and Valorant. So how are they just now adopting Hall effect switches when strafing is so important in those games, right? So those are my criticisms of Logitech, and I just think they need a management shakeup in the like Pro series market, right? Like Pro Superlight, Pro Wireless. Like they made the Pro Wireless 2 that doesn't even get 4K or updated scroll wheel or updated internals, stuff like that. Still uses the same base instead of updating it to the Superlight base because everyone likes the Superlight feed better than the original GPW feed. It's just like, it feels so out of touch of what they're doing, and they just need that management shakeup to just start listening to the community and start listening to the feedback. You know, be like Razer. They've just constantly been listening to feedback. The Viper V3 Pro is a huge release, huge release. It's taking strides that might even hurt the GPX2 dominance. Yeah, you can always give me the same argument, right? Oh, Logitech doesn't need a shakeup, right? They're doing fine. Look at the Pro market share. Look at the Amazon reviews. How many Amazon reviews they have. Look at the community market share. There's just so many Superlights. There's so many GPX2 Superlights. There's going to be so many DEXs. I know this. But the same could once be said for a company like Intel, right? How's Intel doing now? You know, reviewers are coming out and saying, like, look at the competition. The competition is doing so much more innovation. They're at least trying, right? You know, at some point, the word of mouth is going to catch up to Logitech, even though right now, yes, they are doing fine, right? But you can't just keep going, releasing product after product where people are saying, you know, what is Logitech doing? You keep confusing everyone, right? Eventually it's going to catch up. And you even have the CEO coming out and pitching like this weird dystopian, like super capitalism subscription-based mouse, right? Like, what are we doing? I mean, I know they immediately walked that back, but again, like I keep saying, the word of mouth is going to catch up to you eventually, right? Yes, let's all acknowledge that Logitech is doing fine, but you don't know. If you just continuously stop listening to feedback, one day, we might look at Logitech versus Razer the same way we're looking at Intel versus AMD right now. You never know.